Welcome to the Cemintel Weatherboards DIY DVD. Cemintel weatherboards are pre-primed and easy to maintain. Cemintel weatherboards can be used to reclad existing homes, for extensions, upper story additions or for new houses. This DVD will highlight installation details and tips for both Cemintel Headland and Cemintel Endeavour profiles.
Hi, my name's Scott. We're going to show you how to install the Cemintel weatherboards, both profiles, Headland and Endeavour. Let's go and have a look at the tools we need for the job. The most important tool we use today is the installation guide. It outlines the steps that we need to install the Endeavour and the Headland weatherboards. Outlines the tools, calculators and detailed pictures of scenarios that we're likely to encounter on the installation. We'll need a measuring tape, of course, measuring the outline of the wall for cutting and measuring boards required, score and snap knife, tungsten tip steel blade used for marking and cutting boards prior to snapping, guillotine, basically a builder's pair of scissors, has a small blade in there, comes in very handy for length cuts of boards for under windows and around doors and so on. A few types of nails we'll use. Most of your installation will be a 40mm nail. We may use a 50mm if we're retrofitting over an existing cladding surface. Stanley style knife, which will be used for cutting, sarking and so on prior to installation of the boards. String lines to ensure we've got a nice straight level when we're starting. Use that in conjunction with our spirit level to make sure that the lines we've got when we're starting are accurate, and then measuring throughout the process to ensure the boards are still straight and level. You'll need a hammer, of course, for putting in nails. A dust brush. We'll need to use that when wiping down the boards prior to installation. Need to wipe the top and the bottom of the referencing system to ensure we get a great lock. And finally, the sealant when jointing on stud or off stud. Now we've gone through the tools, let's go and do some work. Measurements on both sides of the boards to ensure a nice straight line. Put your straight edge in place to allow the score and snap knife to keep a nice straight line across the profile of the board. Being a 10mm thick board, you need to score both faces. Score face first, turn the board over to the back, make sure your measurements are equal on both sides. Once scored through, lift the board, keep weight over the top of the joint so you get a nice straight edge. And done. So here we are ready to install our first board. The next step is to install our starter strip. So we've got a powder coated steel mould which fits neatly in the back of the first board, allowing us to obtain a nice level finish. So next we install our corner mould. So next we need to line the board into the starter strip. So we do that by just holding the board above the strip, drop it down into place, and then slide it so it finishes neatly into the corner, like that. Then we nail it off. Nails go into this groove. That allows the head to sit nice and flush, so when the next board sits over the top, you've got a nice, even, tight finish. Yep. The next step is to brush off any debris that may interfere with the lock of the next board. Once that's clear, we're ready to stick the next plank on. Board locks in nice and tight and slides up to the corner. There we go, ready to nail. Here we have a situation where we've got a joint in the plank. In this case, the joint is not on a stud, which means it's both your timber supports are spaced off here. We're going to have a joint that's in between those. Now, with the way the board's locked together, there's no problem with an off-stud joint. Simply put the next board up in location next to it, leaving a small gap, and we'll fill some sealant in there. Now that we've nailed our board up, we need to weatherproof the joint. We've left a gap which will allow for expansion and contraction of the building. We need to use the sealant just to fill that joint. Even though there's no timber work behind this joint, once the next board is placed over the top of these two, the locking system will grab the boards, leaving a nice firm solid grip. If you get any overruns, the product cleans up with mineral terps. To complete the joint, we need to put the next weatherboard in place. The rebated profile will overlap the board, reinforcing the joint, keeping it nice and firm. Done. Top of the board locks into the bottom, giving the joint strength and a nice neat finish. The last step now is to install the two-piece corner. Two serrated edges lock onto the base piece, and the corner's complete. Two ways of cutting the Endeavour weatherboard. The first will be the score and snap knife. Take two measurements on your board, making sure that we've got a nice straight line. There's straight edge, spirit level usually does the job. Making sure you put plenty of pressure down on the board. Now these boards are 10mm thick, so we need to score both faces to ensure a clean snap. Make sure you get your measurements right, you don't want to have two offside cuts. Again, plenty of weight down on the level. Use your straight edge along the line to ensure that you get a clean snap when you lift the board. Easy as that. The other option is to use the guillotines. Guillotines are basically a large pair of scissors. You've got your opening and a blade. The waste gets expelled on the bottom. The blade's about 2.5 inches wide, so to cut the width of this board we'll need to make 3 or 4 cuts. Again, measure the board. This time make a pencil mark so you've got a guideline to follow. Open up the blades. And there you go. What we're going to look at today is the cladding or the retrofitting of an existing fibre cement clad home. A couple of key things we need to take into consideration at surface preparation. So we need to make sure that the wall we're working off is smooth, flat, as stable as possible. Any existing cover strips are removed. Any nails that may be protruding or bent need to be hammered flat or removed, and the surface needs to be attached to the wall correctly. Run your hands over a surface and you'll find any nails that may be sticking out like that. Where possible, remove. Where not possible, nail flat. And any sheets that may be loose need to be attached a little bit further. Any cover strips will need to be removed before we can put the new weatherboards on. We're not going to retain these, so removal isn't critical as long as we have a nice smooth surface that we're going to work with. Ensure that the joints are smooth. Any existing nails there are either punched flat or anything protruding is removed from the surface. Once we've got that nice straight wall, we're ready to install. When nailing over a pre-existing surface, we need to use a slightly longer nail than previously discussed. In this case, we're using a 50mm fibre cement nail. We need to make sure that we nail it into every stud. The easiest way to identify the studs is to look at the previous sheets. Follow the nail lines used earlier. In this case, we have nails running at every 450mm centre. You can use up to a 600mm centre with these styles of weatherboards. Now we have the weatherboards in place. The final step is to apply 2 coats of a premium grade exterior acrylic, including all external and internal corners.
We hope you have enjoyed our Weatherboard DIY demonstration. For further information, go to our website or phone 1300 Cemintel.